session.
As you feel, if you want to wait for another couple of minutes, you are
Fine, let's wait for 2-3 more minutes.
yeah.
So I think it's time, and we should be starting off the session. Okay.
Okay.
So I welcome all the participants and our esteemed panelists at this session on how SME manufacturing can be a driving force towards Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. This webinar is jointly organized by Power to SME and Vatwani Foundation. And I hope the deliberations at today's discussion will help the participants to address their issues and concerns related to the SME manufacturing domain. And before we start with the discussions today, I have a few requests to be made to the participants. All attendees are requested to kindly mute themselves throughout the entire duration of the discussion, and kindly switch off your videos and try not to present the screen. Will disrupt the speakers, and thus the flow of the session will be hampered. And today we have with us a highly seasoned panel of experts and some industry veterans. And we have Dr. H.P. Kumar, former CMD NSIC and Director External Affairs, Power to SME, as a session chairman. If you have any questions to be raised to any of these speakers, kindly submit your queries on the chat. And these questions will be taken up in the Q&A session one by one. And before we start with the discussion, and I hand over the session to Dr. Kumar, let me have a few more minutes of your time to introduce Power to SME and Vatwani Foundation. Power to SME, we established in year 2012. We are 8-year-old company, and we came up as India's first B2B digital ecosystem for SMEs. And we primarily operate in three domains. Our portal, power2sme.com, it aggregates demand for SMEs for the most commonly acquired raw material and sells these at very competitive prices. Our portal, financeme.com, connects empaneled lenders with SMEs, and our NBFC by the name BizFunds provides innovative and flexible credit solutions to SMEs. Our online B2B marketplace, SME Shops, it allows SMEs to buy and sell industrial products, mainly in MRO, maintenance. And with response to the market demand under COVID crisis, Power to SME came up with a entire range of products where SMEs or industry corporates can buy or sell these COVID products in bulk quantities. And during this COVID lockdown, Power to SME assembled a best minds in the business to provide a very comprehensive and holistic solutions to the SMEs, the current situation, problems of SMEs, and address the most pertinent challenges confronting this sector. We have, in this direction, we have also partnered with many institutions and bodies like Vatwani Foundation. We have partnered with several industry bodies like FICCI, ASSOCHAM, CII, PhD Chamber, IIA, CASIA, CODICIA, and many more. Uh, about Vatwani Foundation. Vatwani Foundation is a global philanthropic organization having a presence in 25 countries across three continents. Advantage program works exclusively with SMEs to help entrepreneurs grow their business through strategic consulting and access to its around 3,500 strong ecosystem service providers and mentors. And in the very end, I request all the participants to kindly fill the webinar questionnaire that is being floated on the chat box, and do subscribe to our newsletter SME Faber, which is a one-stop for all the relevant SME news. So do subscribe to SME Faber newsletter and fill the webinar questionnaire. The links are provided on the chat box on regularly throughout the discussion. And with these words, I request Dr. H.P. Kumar to kindly take the session forward. Dr. Kumar, to you.
Thank you, Zumair. In fact, good afternoon to all the participants, distinguished panelists today. We are going to discuss a very, very important issue today, Atmanirbhar Bharat, how to make Atmanirbhar Bharat through SME manufacturing. So we are all aware that we have been dependent on imports for a lot of products. There was absolutely no issue prior to this COVID-19 situation. Over the last 2 decades, we have been expanding our internal trade, and our policies also have been directed towards expansion of external trades. A lot of products are being exported, and a lot of products are being imported also. Now, when we say Atmanirbhar Bharat, that encompasses a lot of issues. It is not only becoming Atmanirbhar in terms of our manufacturing, and manufacturing also, since manufacturing takes place in SMEs as well as bigger companies. So it's a big area of manufacturing where we are contemplating Atmanirbhar, self-dependence. But then there are many other areas where we need to become independent, and instead of depending on imports and other areas. Now, what we are going to discuss is Atmanirbharta through SME manufacturing. So how do we bring changes? How do we bring improvements in the SME sector across the country so that we can become Atmanirbhar, self-sufficient? As of now, as per my information and the discussion which I had with a lot of people over the last 1 month, even more than that, even before this, this China problem happened, that we have been, trying to consolidate and get information as to what are the products which as of now are being imported from other countries in mass for the Indian consumption. I understand, as per the information, that there are close to 3,000 items, 3,000 kinds of products which are being imported. It's not only China, but other countries also, but China being the bulk of supplier. What we discussed with various authorities was that how and which are the products which can be taken in the first instance to manufacture within the country, and how much time does it going to take. If there are products which are like telecom and defense, and there are communication systems, electronics, cell phones, particularly mobile phones, we have major dependence on imports from China. It is not only the finished products, but even the components are being imported, because whatever is being produced in India as a finished product, major part of the raw material and components are being imported from China. Take the case of pharmaceuticals. Now, although India is very strong in manufacturing pharmaceutical products and exporting to a large number of countries, including US, Europe, but then where from the raw material is coming? 70% of the raw material for pharma companies is coming from China. So if you say that we will become Atmanirbhar in manufacturing of these bulk drugs and replace imports over a period of short time, I think that is not looking so feasible immediately. It will take time. We will have to plan on a long-term strategy as to how do we become Atmanirbhar in every areas. If you stop, buying small components, equipments for assembly of finished products here, so you have to continue to depend on these things of imports from the other countries, including China, unless you are able to build your manufacturing capabilities within the country. Now, there are many products which may take long time, which may take years, in fact, to put up the plants. It requires not only the technology, manufacturing facilities, land, and entrepreneurs, of course, and then capital also, whether it is internal capital or the foreign funding, whatever is possible. So, there is one strategy that is for medium and long term, on which the government has already started working also. But then there is another list of items. You take of these, Diwali products and these holy products and these, daily use items, even textile garments and hand tools and cycle products and small electronics, small, like your toys. These are all products which do not require huge investments or even very sophisticated technology. But then there is a huge consumption and imports even of these products. These can be taken up in the first stage for indigenization and import substitution. This list requires our immediate attention. So how do we go about it? That is the question, because everybody is asking which are the products. So how do we start? Where do we start? Where are the facilities? What government is supporting? Everybody is talking of government support. What government should support? Government should support. I agree, government should support. But then let us start with somewhere and in a systematic manner. So what is first? People want to know which are the products, where they can enter. So these 3,000 products, these information is available to the government at various levels because these are being imported, and every import, like customs place where the products come, they have the list, they have the, information about which are the products at what prices, which country they are being imported. They are also getting the, most of the cases probably Mr. Sitaram will be able to mention later, inform us. As I understand, they are taking out some 1 or 2 or 3, 4 or 5 samples also of these imported to check what the genuineness of these products. And also when they are taking the samples, it means all these samples of these products are available within the country with some custom authorities or some other organization. These products can be displayed and informed through the exhibitions and expos, small expos based on the category of products, or these products can be listed and then the information disseminated to the people in general. Otherwise, as of now, people don't know. We only know that toys are being imported. We know that cell phones are being imported. We know that electronics are being imported. But then which are the exact items? That list has to be made public, and preferably by way of exhibiting the products because they have the samples. Now, that is not enough. That will only create the interest among the entrepreneurs. Once the interest is created, along with that, we have to start developing the infrastructure. The specific zones for import substitution, for manufacturing of import substituted products, like we were doing earlier, export processing zone. I can say now import substitution processing zone, import substitution manufacturing zones. And these import substitution manufacturing zones also should be given all those benefits and incentives and tax rebates which are presently being given to the export processing zones. Because ultimately import substitution also helps the same way as exports. Exports brings foreign exchange, import saves foreign exchange. So it's almost the same. So they should be given, and a policy to this effect should be announced by the government of India immediately. We are making a request to the government, in fact, through various chambers for this particular thing. Now, having said that, once the policy is there has to be land allocation by the states for this kind of manufacturing zones, and then allotment of and building of course, infrastructure. I mean, it should not take years to build the processing zones. Even some of the existing zones, some of the existing areas can be classified and designated as import substitution processing zones or import substitution manufacturing zones, with by giving all these facilities and incentives and tax rebates. So people will take it over and try to come forward and set up their enterprises. Now, these are some of the initiatives, and of course, in addition to that, just announcing the policy will not be enough. Provision of funding support, special funding support, and subsidies. I'm not saying that you should give, like very concessional loans, but at least the 2% or 3% interest subvention which is being allowed should be continued and should be allowed even in these cases also. We provide 5% concession in case of exports, concessional interest rate. Even in this case also, the similar interest rate should be charged for, to the units which come up for setting up under this import substitution manufacturing zones. So these policies are going to help. The government has to really announce that these are the priorities in terms of our Atmanirbharta through the SME manufacturing. That is the first issue of discussion that we thought of, that we are going to discuss. I will have the views of our expert panelists also later. The second issue is regarding, that we are going to discuss is through the smart manufacturing. Now, smart manufacturing, of course, and recalibrating and rethinking in terms of our priorities and, for procurement and production and supply chain, etc. These are all areas where basically to become competitive, to reduce the cost of production, to improve the quality of products. Why people are buying from Chinese imports? The reason being they are cheaper. Although the quality is an issue in those cases, but then people, for the products which are not very long lasting, and they get maybe 1/4 of the price or 1/3 of the price, people prefer to go for such products. Can we also take up similar things, not with the poor quality, but by having the good quality, even if cost is little higher? I'm reminded of some of the products which are being manufactured in the country, even though they are costlier than the other countries and imported, products, but still people prefer, in fact, those Indian products, like for example, these motorcycles, or even these pharmaceuticals, or even hand tools, or even some of the machineries. People prefer, in fact, to buy these equipments and machineries and products, even though they are costlier, because of the quality. Our motorcycles business, in fact, has expanded to a large number of countries, and China stands nowhere. And there is no Chinese motorcycle being sold in India, where we are selling almost, how many, I think 30 lakhs motorcycles. So if quality is good and your cost is reasonably okay, even if it is little higher, people will still buy for the sake of quality. So the question is how to, restructure our operations, and what is required, in fact, to reduce the cost and improve the quality is basically the manufacturing and procurement and supply chain recalibration, to reduce the cost of raw material consumption, to reduce the wastages, to reduce the manpower, wastages, improve the manpower productivity. This is another factor. Labor productivity and manpower productivity in India is much less than other countries. People may say that it is because of the difference in the governance structure and the protection granted to labor by way of labor laws in India, whereas China and other countries do not have these kinds of protections. And sometimes people call it as exploitation. But then you have to have a balance. You can't have the other extreme in India. While there is very lot of strictness in countries like China, in India there is a lot of protection. So productivity is much less. The sound is echoing. Can others be muted, please? Zubir, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Let me.
If you can mute others, please.
Yes.
So that there is no
The
issue.
participants are requested to please be on mute, please.
You can also do that from central level. Okay. So what I was saying is that there is tremendous pressure on the Indian entrepreneurs and SMEs to improve the quality and to improve the productivity. And unless we do that, we are not going to become Atmanirbhar. Our dependence on imports will continue because you can't stop people suddenly. You can't force them not to import. Ultimately, it is a free country, democratic country. Unless you put a complete ban on the imports and put so much of heavy duties that they become costlier, which you probably can't do deliberately because it's still WTO regime is working, and we are under the regulations of our agreements. So government cannot do that. People can really, by their choice, opt for Indian products, and that is how this gradual shift, will happen from imported to Indian. Improve the quality, improve the productivity, reduce the cost, make it more attractive, and first of all, that is only when you are able to set up the manufacturing. So first is to establish the manufacturing for these products. So with these words, I would not like to continue, in fact, solo, but would invite my guest speakers also, in fact, one by one, then we can involve our audience so that we can have questions on this and address the concerns. So we have our distinguished panelist today, Mr. Sitaraman, who is the MD of Synthesis Winding Technologies and president of ELSINA. ELSINA, we discussed, in fact, it's a electronics city industry association, like it's a very unique model that probably he is managing the whole township of electronic city. It must be in a big area. He will probably inform in his address. But it's a great job which probably he is doing. He's an entrepreneur and an innovator, in fact, for 2 decades. A very successful entrepreneur manufacturing when manufacturing the winding machines for power, automobile, healthcare, aerospace and defense, all very sought after sectors, and all of these require indigenization and Atmanirbharta. He's also secretary of the president now, of course, president of the Electronic City Industry Association, the only association given charge of maintaining electronic city by the government of Karnataka. So I invite Mr. Sitaram, and with these particular issues that he is aware of, let him give his views, and particularly as to how this SMEs can survive after this this effort, and what is the best way of, because he, being the practical entrepreneur, would be able to throw more light. So over to you, Mr. Sitaram.
Dr. Kumar, thank you very much. And also thank you, Vadvani Foundation, and also the other participants. It is my pleasure to be interacting with you today. I expect to learn a lot from this interaction. So this is a nice opportunity. Small corrections in what Dr. Kumar mentioned. In Electronic City, the association is one part, like any other industries association. And then we have the Township Authority. The Township Authority is managed by councillors who are elected among our industry leaders. So I participate with the association part, which is like any other association. Of course, it is a very close connect with the township authority as well. So I'm very impressed with the inputs that insights that Dr. Kumar gave. Thank you, sir. Very useful inputs. So I just want to start by saying that I am accustomed to interactions, one-on-one interactions, but not one-way speaking, and also sitting in front of sitting alone and talking to a computer is somewhat a little strange to me, unfamiliar. So I may falter. Please excuse me for that. So I intend to talk about my views gained from interactions with several of our industries inside Electronic City, outside, as well as interactions with other associations, plus a little bit of whatever I have learned during these last 30 years in running our own business. In terms of, since we are talking of Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, I will more go by my understanding and learnings from the interactions rather than data, and also from my own personal experience, where we have been able to design, develop very high-end technology and supply equipment to some of the biggest companies worldwide, including in Switzerland, in Germany, and incidentally, we also supply to China. Which many of our friends feel quite excited when they hear that. So there are several initiatives. Of course, the government is doing a lot of things. What repeatedly when I come to this Atmanirbhar Abhiyan talk, my opinion is that it is a very important call for the collective conscience of our country, of the MSMEs on the supply side as well as on the buyers. Initiatives the government will definitely have, but when our Prime Minister is repeatedly talking about this, then our conscience gets triggered and we want to do something about it. This is for me a very important thing. And also recently, I think 2 days ago, we saw that the Telecom Ministry has said no to certain telecom products, and then people already once such a statement is made, people will think, and in the public sectors and also in the private sectors, if they are thinking of importing because of this Abhiyan, they will think, okay, can I at least look for a source within India? So this movement is very good. But we must understand that it will, like Dr. Kumar was mentioning, it will take time for industry, Indian suppliers to gear up in terms of the range of products. We do have a few products that can meet, but very little range. If you try to buy a phone that is made in India, you will have, let us say, 2 models from each of those manufacturers or 3 models of each of those manufacturers. Also in several other things. One is the range of products, the scale, and also the quality levels we have to work on. So during this phase, the buyers will need to be somewhat tolerant. That is in terms of little extra planning, maybe hand-holding with their suppliers, and price and all that, which Dr. Kumar also mentioned, and such other things. But there is no doubt whether we Indian companies can rise to that occasion, and we surely will do it. And Dr. Kumar gave a lot of information about the auto industry and how the two-wheelers have dominated. I was getting some input somewhere that China was dominating the African and South American markets, and then of late the Indian companies have taken over. Anybody wanting a good motorcycle will buy an Indian one, and if they are only wanting a cheap one, they will try and buy Chinese motorcycles. And in India, we have seen that nobody else is able to compete with us at all. We are excellent in that. So this is one extremely good example. Another one that came to my mind, and with some companies that I interact with very closely, if we look at the uninterrupted power supply systems, Indian companies like Microtech, Luminous, and Super.
Mr. Sitaram, I think there is some issue with your audio.
and try in
Yes,
case
yes.
it
Now,
is okay. Is it any better now? Is it any better?
yes, it's better now, sir.
Okay, so I will leave the video off and also feel a little more comfortable because of that.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. So these three companies that I have very closely interacted with, Microtech, Luminous, and Sucam, all manufacturing UPS systems, is another excellent example, but may not be so widely known. They make just between the three of them, they make about 40,000 units every day, and the products are so excellent and so competitively priced. There is no space for China here at all. So this is also quite inspiring to see what is possible in India. And of course, in this ramp up phase will put some additional strain on the buyers. But once set, they stand to gain. We have seen many times that when the supply sourcing starts happening in India, over a period of time, then you have better quality, then more reliable supplies. There are innovations and cost reductions and so on. So, without hesitation, we must start talking to our customers and also prospective customers that they should look at this as an investment and not a burden. To be a little patient when their Indian suppliers are ramping up. So, now coming to the specific topic that I have been asked to talk on, that is adapting to the evolving business trends and key for survival. Here, I request the chairperson to permit me to take a slight deviation.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of looking at a key for survival, I would say key to thrive rather than survival, because Indian entrepreneurs are very, very resilient, and survive we will. There is no question about that. So we can do it. So I will slightly take on a more positive tone.
Please.
When we talk of adapting to the evolving business trends, I wanted to first look at looking at what some of these trends are. Due to this pandemic, the lockdowns, and the related geopolitics and all that, there have been a lot of disruptions that have occurred in the supply chains worldwide. Now, normally when we think of disruption, we think it is bad, but when we look at it in some more detail, buyers are frantically looking for alternate sources. They are looking at multiple sources. Where they were buying only from one company, they will look for one more company. But if they were buying from one country or one region, they will look for a source in another region, so that their risk can be partially mitigated. They are also looking away from China. So this gives an excellent opportunity for us to gain new customers, to introduce new products or service lines, and also to move into new geographies. This is one thing, trend that I see. Then the US-China trade war started with a few tariff lines. It is intensifying, and day by day, it is becoming harsher. So then there are some other companies that closely follow what the US is doing. And then we all know that Japan has extremely good ties with India, and at the same time has some issues with China for various reasons. One factor that we also see is there is a trust deficit factor with China. Many companies and countries find it very difficult to trust China, mainly in IP-related matters, but also in some other areas. On the other hand, we see that they are a little more or much more comfortable dealing with Indian companies, and they consider us trustworthy. Many of the high-end things, if we go, they are very critical about their own technology and intellectual property protection. And fortunately for us, many of our Indian companies have behaved well, and then we have a good reputation there. Of course, it is also a responsibility that we have to preserve that and enhance the factor much better. Now, also a growing trend is if we look at about 20 years ago, um, even some of the business people could not point to India on a map, but now everybody recognizes, and there is a very fast growing recognition that Indian companies are capable of meeting very stringent standards, and we are good in technology and very highly skilled and all that. So this is also a positive factor on our side. Then coming to the other side, we will also find it difficult to fulfill our orders in MSME companies. I don't know, I haven't looked at how the big companies are doing. Since our supply chains are also disrupted, raw materials, components, capital equipment, and all that, somewhere these are also linked to China. Some are directly being imported, but let us say a manufacturer of some equipment in Europe, we are buying it from them. Their raw material may be coming from China. So everything is quite difficult, getting difficult now. Now, on top of all this, there is this Indo-China spat that has happened in Ladakh and other regions, and then this is likely to be affecting business. We personally have a little experience about how it has affected. There may be government restrictions, for instance, because of this trade things, sanctions or bans and all that. But also there are unofficial and very subtle things like holding up or delaying the customs clearances and so on that might affect businesses on both sides. I mean, whether we want to export or whether we want to import, both these things get affected. So these are some things that I thought were the evolving trends. There will be many other trends, of course. Then we see that the market is very rapidly changing. Suddenly, the last 2 years, the automobile industry has started going down. One is, of course, some people say it is Bharat Stage 6, but it is also the electric vehicle. The companies are a little skeptical to invest in conventional technologies because the transition to electric vehicles can happen soon. And people are also maybe skeptical of buying the fossil fuel based vehicles. And then the whole environment can change. So this will seriously affect the traditional auto component companies. But there are opportunities elsewhere. Then there is, since this pandemic started, we have social distancing and work from home. So this will create possibly create the increased use of private vehicles, mostly the smaller ones, rather than traveling in. Some people might reduce traveling in public transport. So that might increase is one possibility. Then we are looking at lesser use of office spaces and more or better personal spaces, because work from home, since they spend a lot of time at home, then they might want to do better. So all these might create another set of requirements. And then there will be definitely, we are seeing increased use of data and more dependable data connections. There is a huge demand for data related equipment already. So one more interesting thing is happening is there might be a migration from urban to peri-urban areas, again because many companies are allowing work from home, so they need not be staying in an expensive area in the city. And also people know that the urban areas are quite polluted, and then they got a chance to experience also a less polluted environment during the lockdown. So this might trigger a trend for people to move more towards peri-urban and rural areas, and then data availability in rural areas will increase. Data need in rural areas will increase, and this will create a whole new set of requirements for let us say networking products, rooftop solar, hybrid UPS, and all that. This will dramatically possibly increase. And then due to migration, there will be a shortage of labor in every possible area. We see very rampant in construction sector, but also in manufacturing. There'll be several migrant workers have gone back to their native places and are not returning. So this will possibly need create a need for higher level of automation in the businesses, both in manufacturing as well as in the office space, automation of office equipment, and also improvements in process, because we will have to manage with lesser people and also more transient people. So these are some situations where the market situation is very rapidly changing. So then, just looking at somebody shared some information about the manufacturing output of different countries, from which I saw that India's manufacturing output is about $400 billion, and China's is about $4 trillion. So even if 10% of theirs is coming to India, either due to Atmanirbhar or due to the geopolitics or anything, we will have to double, and this is a huge opportunity and as well as a challenge. And I personally believe it is possible we can. So I was looking at what can be the hurdles, and for some time I've been thinking a little non-traditional approaches on the hurdles. There are, of course, external factors. Dr. Kumar also mentioned about infrastructure, and most of us who have ever competed with any Chinese supplier know that their pricing is completely unrealistic. And so these kind of external factors are there, which I don't want to talk about. All of us know that. So I wanted to look at, I urge all of us to look at the factors that are more in our control rather than simply asking the government to improve infrastructure. We will keep asking that. But what is in our control? So two key things that are probably often overlooked, I wanted to highlight, because personally I have experienced this thing playing out very severely in our businesses. So many people don't believe that Indians are good in technology and quality. And this is not just foreigners, even Indians don't believe that we are good in quality. And of course, this is not true, because we have done excellent things. We have done space. We have done any kind of research. We are extremely good. We have the skills and we have the capabilities. And we need to make a very concerted effort to demonstrate our strengths and convince that we are top class. And as I have seen, the bigger problem is not in convincing the customers, but in convincing our own internal team and our employees. This, I personally have experienced, that is the biggest challenge we have. If we are able to overcome that challenge, then we can work on innovations, we can work on product developments and do very well. The second issue that came to my mind, again, slightly non-traditional issue, is that we Indians have a very deep-rooted culture of questioning, and it's not bad. It's very good, and we have a lot of creativity. But when we let this manifest in production, it's a disaster. We can't be creative in during the handling the production, and we can't be questioning the processes and all that. Instead, if we use this trait for innovation, we can be on top of the world. So the trick is,
somebody wants to join the
hello, am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Sitaram, you're able. Please carry on.
Okay. So the trick is to use this indiscipline, this character of questioning and curiosity and all that, to extensively discuss and debate, and in the decision-making phase, until the action points and methods are frozen. And once they are frozen, we must learn to be disciplined like the Japanese and Germans in executing it precisely as per the book. So if we can achieve this balance, I think no one in the world can beat us. So this is something that we thought of. I thought is not very commonly recognized. So so I just complete there, and then I request you not to expect any prescriptions from me. I will just share some thoughts that I have seen and experienced working. So what I feel is that even if you are an ancillary, this is again particularly what Dr. Kumar also mentioned, that if we are going to be self-reliant, what is it that we should do? We can't be doing the things that we have been doing for the last 50 years in the same way. So even if we are an ancillary, a subcontractor or such other thing, we have to invest a small amount of money and about 10-15% of our energy and mind space of the top management for innovation, new product development, developing new markets and all that, and it will pay very rich dividends in the medium to long term. Many companies, particularly in the MSME sector, have regular customers, maybe 2 customers, maybe 5 customers, who keep on giving them orders for the same kind of product that they have been making for many years. They have also gained expertise, and then we keep on supplying those products. Every year, the supplier calls for a price negotiation on the same product. We give another, we crib and give another 5% reduction, and then somehow manage. So this, we should try and slightly come out of this kind of a situation by investing a little in innovations and in R&D, and so that it'll new product development and all that, or even new markets if we are if it is not a product company. This is one very important thing. Then we have to have patience, because these foreign companies, particularly if you are into exports, and also many of the bigger companies, they need time to understand you and to be able to trust you with their critical needs. Because for us, it may appear to be a small component that goes into a car, but if let us say I'm the supplier and my process and my systems and my company is not running well, then their car production will stop if I don't supply the small component. So it is very critical for them. So we have to understand, and we have to have patience, that they need a lot of time to understand us and to be able to trust us when so that they depend on us for their critical needs. And another important thing is to be constantly alert for the opportunities, and we have to keep looking to improve the processes. There is no rest at all. Every day we have to look at how can my product or process be better? How can I cut down the cost? How can I improve the quality? This has to be an everyday affair. The fact that the customer inspected and agreed and passed our product and accepted it, we should not make us complacent. Continuously, we have to improve and keep getting better. Then we have to, this innovation does not happen by spur. We all know that. We have to cultivate a culture of innovation at all levels of the organization. And then the top management has to be very deeply involved in this exercise and the effort. Because it is essential to send the right kind of signals to all the people in the organization. If the top management assigns innovation to somebody, it is like delegating parenting. It doesn't work. So these are there, and we have to strive to become world class. There is no other way. We have to go and beat the world. Otherwise, somebody else will gobble up our share of the market as well. So then one other thing we see is many MSMEs are run by the founders or maybe their next generation, and they are extremely good in a particular area. Somebody is good in technology, somebody is good in managing finance and things like that. Somebody is extremely good in marketing. But a business does not run by competence in one area. It requires competent people in several other areas as well. So we have to, as much as possible, try and have professionals who are competent in the areas that the founder or the owner of the company who is managing the company themselves are not competent at. So this may not apply to some of the medium and medium companies, but definitely micro and small companies is this problem exists. One thing in Electronic City, what we are trying to do is we are working on knowledge sharing, so that among friendly companies we can borrow expertise from one another, and associations and clusters are very good ways of doing this. While talking to
Mr. Srikanth, we'll come back to you because there are so many things further to discuss. I think let me bring in Mr. Vaibhav Gupta. But before that,
sure.
If I can, pick up few important things from your addresses. The technology is the key, innovation is the key. Of course, new products have to be brought into, and the most important that you said that the trust building, which is very important for our companies, which probably Indian consumers are lacking a lot in the Chinese imported products. That is very important. And of course, development of new markets is the key, in fact, to indigenization. So I'll come back to you for there are a lot of other discussions, and Gupta is waiting, in fact, for a long time, Mr. Vaibhav Gupta. Let me bring him.
Sorry.
So he is the director of MPU Limited, another very successful entrepreneur. In fact, their group is also working since 1985 for the manufacturing of fiberglass helmets they started with, and now they have associated for manufacturing of body armors since 2000, and I think they have got the best of technology for manufacturing of lightweight armor system, which is being provided to close to 2 million soldiers. That's what the latest information that I had. And we would also like to know from Mr. Vaibhav Gupta as to how does he see the future in terms of particularly with regard to the defense products indigenization, because he is into defense manufacturing, and whether we have the technology or we can really how much time is it going to take to gradually shift to Atmanirbharta, which is the main issue for today's discussion. Mr. Vaibhav Gupta.
Thank you, Kumar Saab, once again, and thank you to Power2 SME for inviting me for this discussion. So basically, like Kumar Saab has already said, me to talk on defense, I'll limit myself to the defense industry and particularly for the MSME sector. So I have prepared certain pointers which will help the MSME sector in defense to grow. And I'll start with the Triple P policy, which was amended very latest, the public procurement policy, where the government has come up with a plan that any contract or procurement happening under 200 crores will not be a buy global case. And even if it has to be a buy global case, then the ministry permission will be required, which I think so should not happen if there are Indian manufacturers already in India for that product. So that is a very big welcome step for the entire industry, not only defense, but for other sectors as well, who are looking at the government contracts. Second is that recently DPIIT or the Department of Industry and Technology Promotion, which is under the Ministry of Commerce, they have also started to work on the list of reducing the imports of items. So anybody who is manufacturer of items in India and having more than 50% value addition in India, I think so they should give their comments to DPIIT to include their items to not get imported into India. And that I think so should be discussed with DPIIT, maybe through the Power2 MSME forum. Third thing is that I really like the example of your motorcycle example and Sitaramji's example that India is also exporting to China. And I think so the key thing to learn there for all the MSME sector people is, and that has been personal experience of MKU, that we need to project our products and our company as a very good brand. Branding of products and brand equity is very important. Unless you are not having a brand or you are not having a name behind your product, I think so you lack the voice. If you are in open market competition, let's say you are an exporter, and you are just saying that you can produce, let's say, any good, let's say a mobile phone or anything. But if it is coming with a brand, I think so people really want to see what is that brand standing for. And today, MKU has been here in this industry for last 30 plus years. And we have a significant brand value in terms of the products which we are producing and the innovations and R&D which we are doing in India. So they really trust our products. And yes, again, I would like to add to the example, like Sitaramji told us that a lot of products are getting exported to China. Even our body armor, we are not exporting to China, but we are competing against China and we are winning them in a lot of the countries all over the world. 100 countries are, our customers. Their forces are using our products, even including India. Right now, we are having a big contract from the Indian Army to give them the entire bulletproof helmets. So they are also being made in India, and we are not at all using any Chinese material. All our fibers are coming from either US or Europe. So in terms of safety, I think so, and security, yes, the Chinese are still far behind. Nobody can trust them with their quality. And I think so, we don't see any body armor being exported from China to the rest of the world because their quality is doubtful. So this is where we can really, bring sea change for ourselves. Then, as a defense manufacturing company, I have a suggestion for the government. Again, Kumar Saab should take it up, that our payment should be at par with the foreign players. Currently, what is happening, there is a parity. Indian companies have to file their bills with the procurement branches. Then they take around 45 days or maybe 3 months or 6 months to pay our bills. But whereas in the case of the foreign vendors, the bills are immediately paid through the letter of credit. So when the contract is actually signed, they are already having the letter of credit in their hand, which is not the case in the of the Indian vendors. So I would strongly suggest Kumar Saab, he has been part of that government fraternity, to take up our case and project it to the concerned ministries that, look, if you are placing the order, at least on the MSME sector, you should place it with a letter of credit so that we don't have to wait in queues for getting our payments. And also, I had put up a suggestion with the Ministry of Defense that our bills should not be submitted offline, manual. They should be permitted for online submission so that when government contracts are happening, they are already aware about the invoicing structures, and they should have an online mechanism to accept our billing so that the processing periods can be reduced. Another point which I would like to make is that as a company in MSME sector, I think so people already are aware that none of the big companies manufacture anything. In fact, it is the MSME sector who produces or manufactures these small items, and the big players are just integrators or system integrators. So in that space, I think so MSME sector, and I think so everybody in it, in their own right, must be a technocrat. We need to put in lot of effort into R&D and innovation, so we are not lagging behind the international competition. So let's say today, I'm just sharing an example here, that if anybody is from the defense fraternity here, there is a very big offset business which is waiting to happen in the defense fraternity. Today there is 80,000 crores of offset obligation on the foreign OEMs to procure from India. I don't know how many of you are aware, but I would still say that if you can produce for the defense sector anything, and if it can be used by the foreign OEMs, I think so you should knock at their doors and let them know what you can do, because they might not be even aware. And this is again where Mr. Kumar and Power to MSME can help to project small companies to the foreign players. And I think so they have already been doing in the past when Kumar Saab was in the MSME ministry. But offset still is a big potential for the MSME sector, and where you can add value. So this is another part, sir. Then, sir, I think so. Once I was attending a conference in pre-COVID. It was last year in Noida, and it in Lucknow. It was a very nice conference, and somebody there gave us a comparison of why Chinese companies are able to have lesser value of product as compared to the Indian industry. And the major disadvantage he showed to us was in terms of cost of capital. And second is the energy cost. And third was the freight cost. I think so. These are the three areas which are directly associated with government decision making. Again, cost of capital, sir, for us is very high in terms of if you compare it anywhere in the world today. We are, I think so, one of the most expensive countries in the world when it comes to borrowing capital from the banks. And moreover, if you can get it, there is also a problem. If you are a very small company, they might not even lend you any money. So I think so, where we are seeing so many defaults, big companies get doing defaults on their borrowings. Why can't MSME sector get some special fund? And even if some small companies do fail, but the cost of default will not be so much. And like they say in America, it is always good to fail, because after you fail you learn. So I think so we are not giving the proper chance in India for the small companies to actually take a risk, because the capital cost is too high, their collaterals are too many, and the person simply cannot take a risk. So in this kind of closed cocoon environment, how do you expect a small company to thrive if you're not giving him the right space and platform? So this is again a point I would like to make. Sir, next is, like I've already explained, we need to invest in R&D and innovation. It's very important. And if you look at MKU, we have our own test facilities in-house for our products. We don't depend on labs outside our fraternity to do our testing and trial. Yes, we do need to go for certification to third-party lab, but when we are doing R&D and innovation, then our own infrastructure should be there. I think so. It's a cost-intensive thing, but I would say still, if we can take small steps in having our own labs, small labs inside our faculties, then it really helps you to do a lot of product development. Again, once you will be having the right product and quality, it will help you to export. Ministry of Defense again has been pushing for the Indian companies to not look inwards but outwards, because they also know that right now they are cash tight. So there are two avenues for the defense manufacturers: either it is offsets or either it is exports. And I think so I would be repeating some of the points which I would not like to. So I would like to end my talk here, sir. Thank you.
So thank you, Vaibhavji. Thank you. I think very useful practical inputs that you have given. Very practical. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very practical inputs, because you are a successful entrepreneur yourself. So you know where the shoe pinches, where you are in fact having ease and where the problems are.
Thank you, sir.
Sumer, there is something obstructing here. Someone wants to join this meeting, is appearing on my screen again and again, again and again. Somebody has to really admit them or deny them, because otherwise it blocks my screen. There has to be somebody who should be doing this. So what I was saying is that there are a lot of issues that you raised, and all of them are very valid. In fact, particularly the issue of offset. Offset has a great opportunity for Indian companies, and I am sure that over a period of time, offset is going to, be virtually become non-relevant, because if Indian companies are becoming Atmanirbhar and they are going to start their own production, probably the offset condition has been laid down, because there are no Indian companies and they are not supplying, and orders are going to the foreign companies. And once we are giving the orders to the foreign companies, we want that at least something should be purchased from Indian companies by those foreign companies. So we have to gradually shift to the Indian side, and in that direction only this Atmanirbhar becomes more relevant and more important. And your point of payments, that is very important, because this is not only with the defense sector, but even in other government procurements also. There have been a lot of demands and presentations from various industry associations with regard to delayed payments, and this issue has has been raised from time to time with the government, even with the MSME minister and the finance minister, and probably you may have noticed that in one of the 6 points, which was the first kind of package, stimulus package which the finance minister announced. This was one of the 6, that all payments will be released in 45 days by the corporates and the PSUs. So this challenge continues, because I don't know what is the reason. Is it because of the mismatch of the supplies and the requirements, or some problems in payments, or the lengthy procedures which the government has? Because I know that, because I have been part of the government system, that it takes a long time for a bill to be processed. It goes to almost more than 20 tables, and that is the reason that even if one of them raises an objection, it goes back to 20 again. So that keeps in circles, and that is how it takes long time unless somebody really puts in place the proper need for doing it. So this systemic change is required, and your suggestion that like foreign buyers, foreign suppliers, the LCs are issued by the government. I think that is a good suggestion. If that can be implemented by the government, we will take it up with them for at least for a orders of a certain threshold and above. The letters of credit, domestic letters of credit, inland letters of credit can be issued. That will at least ensure the quick realization of the payments. So I think a lot of issues have come up, but ultimately the whole thing boils down to building capacities of the country and the SME sector, because large industries, of course, are doing their own. They don't need any much of the help. They are doing it. In any case, they will come up with their own capacity funding, and they can raise foreign funding also. It is the SME sector which is, of course, the largest sector, next only to agriculture in terms of number of jobs and employment and the number of products. I think 7,000 plus products are being manufactured by Indian SMEs. And it is a question of providing them support. Now, what support? People say support, government support, government support. See, there are 4 major areas where people are struggling. The business community is raising again and again the problems. And even new entrepreneurs also, those who want to enter, they raise only these issues. First is a lot of approvals. If you start an enterprise, there is a need to have, I think, a number of approvals. That number can be reduced. You should have only one single window approval which gives you all the, like approval for the company, approval for starting a business, approval for the land building, approval for the, employment and all those things. Taxes, GST. And second thing is, now with the approvals comes the need for compliances. If you have 10 approvals, there are 10 compliances. If you have only one approval, there will be only one compliance to that authority from where you have taken the approval. Now, since you have 20 approvals, you need to have 20 types of returns and compliances. So that increases the workload. So people feel that instead of going into all these problems, and then non-compliances have a lot of punishments and penalties. So an ignorant person or a new entrepreneur who will pay more attention towards his manufacturing and employment and labor and keeping marketing and all these things intact may be caught off guard by sudden notices and inspections and failures in compliance of unintentionally, and then of course you are at the mercy of the people. So these things can be rectified. It is not that they are beyond rectification. They can be rectified. A lot of efforts have been made, but then overall the improvements are minimal. Improvements are taking place, but then they are very slow. I think that needs to be taken care of. And then comes the issue of finance, as you rightly mentioned, the cost of finance. Even, while the RBI has reduced the reverse repo rate to 3.5%, in which the banks are parking their funds, surplus funds at 3.5%, but they are not reduced fully, passed on fully the reduction in the repo rate which RBI has announced over the last 3 months. I don't know how it will happen, because even the finance minister, last 3 days I was reading, has only exhorted the banks, not given directions. So banks have to be really come forward and reduce the cost and pass on the benefit to the consumers and to the SMEs, so that we become competitive. And that is a major step to becoming Atmanirbhar. We can become Atmanirbhar only when we are competitive. When we are, we can attract the Indian consumers to buy our products and don't import. That can happen only when you have improvements in your costing, improvements in your quality, improvements in your, other things. So that is another important point which you raised. And of course, restructuring of our operations, production processes, procurement processes, supply chain. Now here comes the Power to SME company like Power to SME, which has been doing a great job. In fact, in a very innovative model of procurement and supply to the SMEs, the raw materials at a very competitive price by procuring the materials from large manufacturers in bulk, by aggregating the requirements of the SMEs, and then providing those materials at the doorsteps of the SMEs, removing the need for intermediaries, wholesalers and retailers, and in turn saving almost 10 to 15% cost in raw material. So that makes a lot of difference. 10 to 15% in raw material. I mean, if that can percolate in the cost of production, I mean, raw material component in any case in many of the products is up to 70-80%, and 10 to 15% saving in the raw material cost alone. And if it can be added in terms of cost of finance, which can be another, 10% reduction in the existing cost. So it makes a lot of difference, and you start becoming competitive. And the third element is, of course, the productivity of the employees, which can come with the innovative practices and improvements in the culture of the working of the people. And that is taking place gradually, but it's a little slow. So all these things are very important for bringing in Atmanirbharta in the country. So let me ask, bring in Mr. Sitharaman. I think we have time, Mr. Zubair.
Yes, sir. We can have a small discussion and then the questions from the
Bring in Mr.
participants.
Sitharaman. Actually, let me ask him very specifically that with the change in definition which the government of India has announced recently in the MSME sector, do you think that this will give a better scope for SMEs in India to become Atmanirbhar and improve their technology and scale up their operations and reduce the cost specifically?
Sir, looking at the classification change, several companies which were slightly bigger and out of the bracket are also coming in into the MSME sector. And since there are certain privileges given to MSME sector, some of the MSMEs who were restricting, not all, but maybe some who were restricting their investment or size because of this, they will definitely now feel convenient to expand, and this will allow them to bring in technology and scale up. Yes, it should help.
Yes, and micro will get a lot of benefit, in fact, because micro's definition has been improved to 5 crore turnover, and almost earlier it used to be 25 lakh investment, it has been raised to 1 crore. And so they are probably, and in any case, more than 90% enterprises in the country are micro, if you talk of total number of enterprises. So they are going to get a lot of benefit. But at the same time, medium and small also, because they are the ones to whom we look at, replacing the imports. They need the technology infusion, and they need to scale up, and then they need to specialize, innovate, and then bring in so many, as you rightly mentioned. So anything that you want to add further?
No, this is fine. And any other questions, I will be happy to respond.
So, Mr. Vaibhav, you talked about. Are you there, Mr. Vaibhav?
Sir,
Vaibhav?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you talked about the financial problem that India, the cost of finance is very high as compared to other countries. So I was comparing this when I discussed this with the government. Government said that, uh, you know, the cost of finance dependent. This is a very technical answer. The cost of finance in any country is dependent on the inflation rate. I
Correct.
think you can link it as an economy because if the inflation is 5%, the interest rate cannot be below 5%. It has to be more
Correct.
than that because otherwise there will be a problem.
Correct.
And in other countries, the inflation is much less.
Correct.
That is why the interest rates are much less. So there are real interest rates. Even if the inflation is 1% and the interest rate is 3%, so you get 2% real, net real. Here, India, if inflation is 5% and you get 8%, then only you get 3% real. If you get rate of interest of 4%, it will be minus, the negative return. So one thing is, of course, this argument given that first of all, inflation has to be brought under control, for which RBI is taking a lot of measures, and of course they are taking also a lot of measures. And sometimes inflation becomes out of control. It depends on the country like ours, on seasons, crops, and so many other factors. So that is one factor. And second is, how do you think that SMEs can borrow from the international markets? Whether that will be cheaper, because if you say international markets are cheaper in terms of the finance.
So first of all, what I think so is what I have read about, how macroeconomics operate and inflation works. I think so any developing country today, inflation is an ingredient of growth. You cannot do away without inflation and then have growth, because the developed countries are already there. They are saturated. Their inflation rates may be minimalistic or maybe negative. But for growing economies, we will never ever have controlled inflation. I don't think so in next 20 years India can have a 2 or 3% inflation. It will be always around 5 or 6, I guess. But what I am saying today is, and I think so a lot of the other participants might be looking at, is that if government of India thinks that India should export, that then it is going to be the MSME sector which has to export, because that is where the real manufacturing is happening. And then if you have that condition in mind, I think so the government of India needs to step in. They already, were thinking about doing something for the MSME sector, and they've always been thinking, why can't they have a special fund for the MSME sector to borrow without having too much of cost? And that will help us. And even if, let's say, in that fund, small companies, they default or they don't pay, the risk is not too much. What the banks today are doing is they are not willing to lend money to the MSME sector simply because there is too much of risk associated, and they ask for too much of collaterals. Whereas in the large sector, if they have to borrow money, international money is also available to them. And even if you look at the example of Reliance today, Mukesh Ambani has already become a debt-free company. He has made Reliance debt-free. Why? Simple reason, he also believes that even if he is working, his entire money is being used up by the paying the bank interest. So I think so bank interest is a very big reason that MSME sector, if it has to excel, government needs to provide some special scheme. And coming back to your point, which you asked to Mr. Sitaram, that, changing of the definition of MSME, I don't think so it will impact the MSME sector in any way. Rather, now, like he mentioned very correctly, the companies who are avoiding to invest, they will start investing. But the real micro and the small sector, which is already there, and they have to progress. I think so they have the thing should be that companies should come out of this sector and stand on their own. You cannot keep on having companies running for 10-15 years and still be called MSMEs. I think so this is a very big deterrent for the growth. So let's try to work to the direction that today, if you are a small company, in next 5 years you will become a micro and a micro to small and then to medium, and then come out of this domain. Why people prefer staying in this sector? Because India may, if we have to participate in a tender, I have to invest in the BG also for EMDs, and for me, if it is a MSME sector company, I don't need to even pay for that money. So
Good point.
kind of,
I think your concerns are very valid and very practical inputs, very valid. And particularly in terms of the cost of finance, I come back to that issue because that concerns almost every enterprise in the country, the small or big, medium or micro. So cost of finance, your observation that the government should come forward and provide some kind of a relief, I think I am in agreement fully, because even the inflation also is the result of government policies. If the inflation is high and that is how the interest rates are high, so government should come forward and do subvention. Like in export credit, they are providing, credit at 5% because that is a priority. And in case of other products also, other MSMEs also, if the interest rates are linked with the inflationary issues, naturally, which is again the government policies, so interest subvention of 2 to 4% can be granted so that the cost can be reduced. Correct. And the other issue of definition, there are diverse views. I asked, that is why Mr. Sitaram also, and your view is also very right that.
Sir, I agree with Mr. Sitaraman's point of view. I think so. He's correct, but then we should be companies who will become giants in the future. That is where we should be thinking and working for. That is my understanding.
I think you are right, because even the foreign credit also, the government of India can avail the foreign credit through any institution in bulk. Correct. And then provide that to the SMEs.
Correct.
The only issue will be in that case of the exchange variation, which of course the government can share, because ultimately exchange variation also is a result of the government policies, the rupee devaluation at a later stage. So whether it is inflation or is it because of devaluation of the rupee, the cost of funding is costlier. Cost of external borrowing is also costlier for us, because we have to repay in foreign currency at a later stage. So both these are government functions. I mean, out of government policies, because of the government policies. So some assistance is required to be, to become competitive for the SME sector. So I think we ask now some more questions. Zumair, I think we are out of time. If we can have some questions, if there are any, Sudhamini.
Yes, sir. So the first question we have today is from Mr. Sanjeev Mehta. He says, how do you ensure equality? In India, we have to develop a mindset for use of technology to ensure no human errors. The government has to actively promote this to make MSME products and services to become error-free.
So I'll request Mr. Sitaram, in case he can answer.
I find it difficult if we can have the question short.
Very short.
No. If the question.
So how do you ensure quality in Indian manufacturing? Because Indian MSMEs are not very technology friendly.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. See, I think deploying technology and quality may not be so directly related as some people say. We have numerous examples where there is no exotic technology, but still they are able to produce extremely good, high quality products. But one issue I was having also in my other list actually is slowly we are seeing a trend that the duration of period that an employee works with one company on that kind of a job is reducing, and this is happening across all industries. So the amount of years of experience that a person has doing a particular kind of task is reducing, and that may have an impact on quality. So there we have the possibility of improving the automation level to ensure that the quality does not suffer when the people change. Process is another thing. And then I think Dr. Kumar mentioned about smart manufacturing and all that. So these are things that will definitely help in improving quality.
Yeah, in fact, I may I may further add that automation is key to quality. As Mr. Sitaram also mentioned, that technology, of course, technology will help in terms of artificial intelligence and Industry 4 technologies. They will help in standardizing the products. But then quality has many other issues. Quality in timely delivery, quality in manufacturing, quality in processing, quality in marketing, quality in customer service. There are so many issues of quality which need to be taken care of. Skilling, of course, is another issue which Mr. Sitaram mentioned. If your workers and workforce is properly skilled and there is not much of the turnover, the consistency in product quality will be maintained. And of course, work ethics also play a very important role in maintaining the quality. So, any other questions?
Yes, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Basaveshwar. He says, does banning the import license, will that help speed up the process of Atmanirbhar Bharat?
Who will answer? Mr. Weber, would you like to answer, or should I?
Dr. Kumar, Vaibhav sir just left. He had some pre-arranged meeting at 4:15, which he deferred for next 15 minutes. So he left. He left.
Let me answer this question. In fact, you can't cancel and pass the import license. The import licenses are granted for those products where the import is not, free. There are majority of products which can be imported even without import license. So there is no question of cancelling the import license. You have to ban import of such products because otherwise people keep importing. There is no license required. Now, very few items where the license is, issued by the government because they are restricted items. And if the government has already issued the license, why would it cancel it? So cancellation of import licenses is not the answer. The answer is to draw a policy to find out as to which are the essential products where the country does not have the capacity, and only those products need to be imported. And then there can be a second list where the country has capacity and they are being imported in bulk, in mass. So their country's capacity needs to be improved, and gradual shifting from duty impositions can take place, gradual increase in duties, so that over a period of time the Indian manufactured products become more competitive, and they can match the prices of the imported products. And third is, of course, where the Indian manufacturing can be as easy as imports. So there the imports can be banned. Imports can be restricted by way of banning. You can't do in the WTO regime. You can only do quantitative restrictions and price tariff restrictions. So by a mix of these policies, I think imports can be curtailed and shifted over a period of time. It will take time because ultimately you can't deprive your consumers also from having cheap products or even from having the products. If the Indians do not have the capacity of manufacturing cell phones without import of components, so do you think that people will be stopped from buying any cell phone because there will be no cell phone manufacturing in India? You have to import them. So how can you stop people from having the cell phone, mobile phone? Which is not practical. You can sentimentally say that, okay, ban China. But then people need some of the products. They have become used to having these products. So on a practical note, I would say it's a gradual shift which will take place. And I think the government of India and the people have become very, very knowledgeable about this. And hopefully it will take shape over a period of time. So Damini?
So Mr. Vijay Gupta is saying that he has a couple of concerns. He says officials must be answerable for delays in payments. Even for renewal of existing licenses, you have to literally go through the whole procedure all over again. Instead of investing our time for innovations, a lot of our time goes into repeated licenses and approvals. All government departments should be able to check it online. Even on GEM, you have to repeatedly submit your experiences while bidding. And he also says that changing in definition and bringing in new companies to MSME sector does expand the number of companies, but the problems at ground level are still to be taken care of.
Would you like to answer, Mr. Sitaram, or should I?
Sir, no, this is your domain. I would like you to
No, I
answer
think
it.
the concerns expressed are very genuine. It is not his concern alone. It is the concern being expressed by a lot of people, I think thousands and maybe millions. The accountability of the people who are in charge of delivering these services and functions and making payments. The accountability needs to be fixed, and that too in a way that they really feel the pinch. Over a period of last few years, the government has done something. State governments also have done something fixing the accountability. But those accountabilities are very difficult to determine. The procedures are so, vague, that how do you hold a particular person accountable when the the single bill goes to 20 desks? Your procedures are such where the accountability cannot be fixed. And you fix the accountability after a lot of inquiry, after a lot of debate and checking, which itself is a big process of, like time taking. After you fix an accountability on somebody, there is a mechanism to challenge that. We will file an appeal. That is another thing. Third thing, even if you punish, the punishment is very meager. 500 rupees, 100 rupees a day of delay. So you delay it for 30 days, it's 3,000 rupees. Whereas you delay the whole and the company gets closed. In 1 month delay, if the payment is not released and the company is not able to pay salaries to the workers and employees, the penalty is only 3,000 rupees for the person who has not performed his work, but the company gets closed. Because of the default to the bank, it becomes NPA. Because of non-payment of salaries, it stops making production. So the accountability has to be proportionate to the default, and the accountability has to be specific, easily understandable. So I agree. I think the concern raised by gentleman, I forgot the name, is very, very genuine, and this really needs to be addressed. I am not saying that the government is not paying attention. Gradual shift is taking place. It is slow. It has to really fast track. Even for new manufacturing enterprises, a lot of people are approaching us for starting new enterprises. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that they need a lot of approvals, and then it question of compliances, and then other infrastructure issues, availability of workplace, land, construction, and while we have reached ease of doing business quite a lot, we have improved, there are certain other issues which still remain to be addressed. So I agree, and we are gradually in constant touch with the government through various forums and representations and meetings, that one by one these changes are taking place. That is what I can say at this moment.
Sir,
Yes.
Sitaram here. Once you are completing, I would like to just add one or two points.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yes, I've completed.
Yeah, one, as you mentioned, it's a maze, and but we have a good example. If we look at the passport processing, it was so horrible earlier, but now it's really a pleasure to see the way the passport processing has been done, a very well laid out structure, and the process and everything is well defined. So the government is doing a lot of good things, and then such examples can be taken, and we should look at also payment in a structure like that. And Vivek was also Vaibhav was also mentioning about the online submission of bills and all that. So this is one thing. I wanted to comment on Vaibhav Gupta's points, and also a little bit on what Mr. Basveshwar mentioned. The banning of imports, I personally don't believe is, or restricting imports is not a good idea. If we see that once the market opened up, first the demand got created, because creating a demand by developing a product is something that is very difficult for smaller companies particularly. So once the demand starts, and because of importing and all that, then it is easy that you have at least the market confirmed, and we can start doing it. And as Dr. Kumar was mentioning, legally also it is not viable to do it because of WTO and all that, and desirability is also not there. In terms of imports, restricting and all that, Dr. Kumar explained it very well, that we should make Indian companies very competitive. And there I want to point out what Vaibhav Gupta said. One is the cost of finance, but in India, for an MSME to borrow any money from the bank is very, very, very difficult. They ask all kinds of collaterals and personal guarantees and all that. And from our association, we want to take it up, if necessary, with the finance ministry or with the banks or wherever, that the bank should be more flexible in lending, and there is a small amount of risk. Banks should understand that there is a small amount of risk, and possibly the banks can absorb, or we can request the government. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I think very well said. These are the concerns which we keep, talking. And all these concerns, it is not that they are not known to the government. When we meet at various levels with the minister, with the finance ministry, with the commerce minister, we raise all these issues and they are aware. The only thing is the system moves so slow that any correction, any change takes so much of time. And that is what the system in democracy is all about. You see, you have consultations with various stakeholders, and all these changes take place very, very with a lot of careful planning and consultations. And that is how the change is happening. The only thing is change is slow. And we are becoming so impatient that, because if we really want to become self-dependent, Atmanirbhar, we have to bring these changes very fast. So, Zumair, Sodamini, any other question?
No, sir, no other questions for today.
Zumair?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kumar, for conducting such a meaningful impact.
Let me conclude that, first of all.
Yes, sir. Please.
I hand over to you. No, I think it has been a very, very well, discussed issue today. Atmanirbhar is talk of the town, talk of the whole country, and we need to become Atmanirbhar sooner than the later. The roadmap is clear that we have to build capacities in the country. We have to build, capabilities, skill the people, bring work culture, improve the labor productivity, improve the cost of financing, bring technology, Industry 4, automation, and reduce the cost of production, improve the quality, and bring trust in the Indian products. Do some policy rejig with regard to the imports, make aware the people about the products which they can start, and give them support. So this is the nutshell probably we need to do. I am sure that the government will be very supportive, and we also keep talking and discussing based on the feedback and the questions that we have in these webinars. So I really feel grateful to the participants and our expert speakers who have given their valuable intellectual inputs today, and this will really help us in making the policy and connecting with the government. And also thanks to Ms. Sudha Sareen, the Senior Vice President of Power to SME, who has been the main brain behind these programs, Mr. Zumair and Sodamini, my colleagues, in fact, who are the backroom full-time working on these projects, and that is how the success of the projects can be seen. So thank you all. Over to you, Zumair.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, and I thank our session chairman, our speakers, Mr. Sitaram, Mr. Vaibhav Gupta, for joining us, participants who joined us, and I hope the deliberations at this discussion were meaningful and impactful for you and will help you in realigning your manufacturing activities in future. And if you have any queries that you want us to pursue post-event, do submit your suggestions, your responses in the webinar questionnaire that is being circulated on the chat box. And with these words, I thank you once again and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Sitaram. Thank you, Zubair. Thank you, Fudami.
Thank you, sir. Nice interacting with you.
Pleasure.